The market was loud that evening. Voices of sellers filled the air. They shouted about fresh fruits, new cloth, and strange glowing spices. The stalls were bright with lamps, but in the middle of all this light, one figure stood in heavy shadows. It was an alien mother. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes tired and sunken. She carried a small basket that looked almost empty. Two small children clung to her long robe, their thin hands gripping the fabric as if afraid to let go. They were hungry, their stomachs empty for many days. She had picked up only a few things, a small loaf of bread, a handful of dried roots, and one round fruit. Her hands shook as she placed them on the counter. She knew it was not enough to feed her children, but it was all she could hope for. The human cashier looked at her with calm eyes. He had seen her before, always standing near the stalls, always looking but never buying much. He had wondered about her story, but tonight he was about to see it unfold in front of him. The screen showed the total. The price was small to most, but for her, it was too high. She reached inside her pocket and pulled out a few dull coins. They clinked softly on the counter, not enough. The machine beeped red, showing shortage. The mother froze. Her lips trembled as she looked at the bread. She knew she could not pay. She turned to her children. They looked up at her with big, empty eyes. The little boy whispered softly, "Mama, I am hungry." Her heart broke at those words. Whispers began around her. Some of the other shoppers noticed. A few laughed cruelly. One man said loudly, "If she cannot feed them, why bring them here?" Another voice sneered, "Aliens should not waste space in this colony." The mother lowered her head. Shame burned her skin. Slowly, with shaking hands, she pushed the bread back across the counter. She tried to return the roots as well. She whispered in a weak voice, I cannot afford this. Please cancel." The human cashier did not move. He stared at the basket, then at her trembling hands. Something heavy pressed inside his chest. He remembered his own childhood, when his family had nothing. He remembered nights when he went to bed hungry. He had promised himself never to let another soul suffer that way if he could help. The mother tried to walk away, pulling her children close, but before she could leave, the cashier spoke. His voice was firm, but kind. "Wait." She stopped, confused, afraid. The people around them grew silent, curious. He reached into his own pocket. His fingers pulled out credits. He slid them across the counter without hesitation. The screen blinked green. The food was paid for. The cashier pushed the bread and fruit back toward her. His eyes met hers. "Take it," he said. The alien mother froze. Her lips parted in shock. She could not understand why. Humans did not help her kind. At least not here. Not in this colony. Her children's eyes widened with sudden hope. The little girl whispered, "Mama, food," as if it were a miracle. The crowd gasped. Some muttered angrily. Some whispered that the cashier was foolish. A woman hissed, "He will lose his job for this." Others stared in silence, unsure what to think. The mother's hands trembled as she picked up the bread. Tears filled her silver eyes. She whispered, "Why? Why would you do this?" Her voice was almost broken. The cashier only gave a small, tired smile. "Because no child should go hungry," he answered. The children clutched the food, holding it close as if afraid it would vanish. The mother bowed her head low. She wanted to thank him more, but no words came. Only tears ran down her cheeks. The market lights shimmered in them. The crowd began to scatter, some shaking their heads, some still whispering. The human cashier stood tall, ignoring them. He did not care about their stares. He only cared that tonight, 2 children would eat. But deep inside, he knew this simple act of kindness would not be forgotten. Not by the alien mother, not by her children, and not by the watching eyes in the market. Something had begun tonight. Something that would not end with just bread and coins. And as the mother carried her children away, holding the food close to her chest, the cashier felt the weight of many eyes on him, some filled with anger, others with curiosity. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew one thing clearly. He had done the right thing. The night was quiet when the alien mother reached her small shelter. The walls were cracked metal. The floor was cold stone. Her children sat near the corner, holding the bread as if it were treasure. Their small faces glowed in the dim light. As they chewed slowly, afraid the food might disappear, the mother watched them with tears in her eyes for the first time in many days. She saw them eat without crying. She whispered to herself, "A stranger gave us this." Her hands trembled as she remembered the human cashier's face. His eyes had not shown disgust or anger. They had only shown pity and something deeper. But kindness was dangerous here. In this colony, humans looked down on aliens. They called them worthless. They forced them into the poorest corners. The mother knew tomorrow people would whisper about her, about how she had accepted food she could not pay for. Yet in her heart, a small flame of hope had started to burn. At the same time, the human cashier sat in his lonely room above the store. The lamps were dim, and the silence pressed heavy. He kept thinking about the alien mother. He could not erase the look on her face when she tried to return the bread. He could not forget the children's empty eyes. He had broken the rules, he knew it. The market had strict orders: never give food away, never pay for others, especially not for aliens. But his heart had refused to stay silent. He leaned back in his chair and whispered to himself, "What else could I do?" The next morning the sun rose pale over the colony. The market filled again with noise and colors. The cashier returned to his counter. People looked at him differently now. Some gave him cold stares. Some shook their heads. A few even muttered insults as they passed. By midday, the alien mother returned. She moved carefully, her children behind her. Her eyes searched the market until they found him. She hesitated, but then she stepped forward. Her hands clutched a small pouch that rattled with coins. When she reached the counter, she placed the pouch down. "I came to return what you gave," she whispered. Her voice was firm but full of shame. The cashier looked at her, then at the pouch. He pushed it gently back toward her. "No," he said softly. "You keep it. You need it more than I do." She froze. Her hands tightened around the pouch. Why would you help me?" she asked. Her words were trembling. Her people had been mocked and beaten for years. No human had ever shown her such care. She could not understand it. The cashier leaned closer. His voice dropped so that only she could hear. "Because I know hunger," he whispered. "Because I was once a child with nothing. And because no one helped me then, I swore I would help if I ever had the chance." Her silver eyes widened. His words struck her heart like fire. For the first time, she saw not just a human but someone who understood pain. She felt her throat tighten. She wanted to thank him, but words broke apart in her mouth. Behind them, a few people noticed. Whispers started again. "Look, she came back to him," one man muttered. "The fool is still helping her," another hissed. Some laughed, others shook their heads. The mother lowered her voice. "If they see you with me, they will hate you more." The cashier only smiled faintly. "Let them whisper," he said. "What matters is that your children eat. That is enough for me." His calm tone carried no fear, only quiet strength. The mother felt a strange warmth. It had been years since she had trusted any human, yet here was one who risked everything for her and her children. She placed a hand over her chest and whispered, "Someday I will repay you." He shook his head. "No need," he replied. "The children's smiles are already enough." But he did not realize that others were still watching. Their eyes narrow, their hearts filled with anger. To them, kindness was weakness, and weakness could not be allowed. As the mother left with her children, carrying fresh food that she dared to buy this time, the whispers followed. But among the whispers, there was also silence. Some people looked thoughtful. A seed had been planted, though most still hated. A few had begun to wonder, why would a human break the rules for her? Why would he care? That night, the mother and her children slept with full stomachs. She dreamed of the cashier's voice. She dreamed of a future where kindness was not rare. where her children could walk the market without fear. And in his lonely room, the cashier whispered again to himself, "If one small act can change their night, what more can be done?" He did not know it yet, but his choice had already started a storm that would test both him and the alien mother, a storm that would decide if kindness could survive. In a world of cruelty, the whisper of kindness had begun, and it was louder than he ever imagined. The colony night was cold. The lamps outside the alien quarter flickered weakly. Inside a broken shelter, the alien mother sat close to her children. She watched them eat the last piece of bread the cashier had given. Their small faces glowed with tired joy, for once their stomachs were not empty, but fear rested in her heart. Kindness from a human was rare. She knew rumors spread fast in the market. By tomorrow, everyone would know about the alien mother who accepted food from a cashier. Whispers were already sharp like knives, and whispers often grew into danger. Her son asked softly, "Mama, will the kind man help us again?" She stroked his thin hair. Her voice was gentle. "Do not hope too much, little one. Sometimes kindness is only once." Yet deep inside she prayed she was wrong. Outside, voices carried through the narrow streets. Neighbors had heard the story. Some were jealous, some said she was lucky. Others warned her that humans would punish her soon. The mother hugged her children close. Shadows of hunger and fear hung over her small home. The cashier also could not sleep. He lay on his small bed above the market. His mind returned again and again to the children's empty eyes. He remembered how the mother had tried to return the food. He remembered the shame in her trembling voice. His fists tightened. "No one should live like that," he whispered. Morning came. The market opened with noise and color, but a new tension filled the air. The cashier felt it as soon as he stepped behind the counter. People stared at him. Some whispered, others smirked. A man shouted from a stall, "So this is the human who feeds beggars." Laughter followed, but the cashier stayed silent. By noon, the alien mother appeared again. She walked carefully, her children close behind. She bought only a small piece of fruit, paying with the few coins she still had. She avoided the cashier's eyes, afraid her presence might bring him more trouble. Yet she felt his silent gaze, steady and kind. As she left, two humans whispered loudly so she could hear. "Aliens will bleed this colony dry," one said. The other added, "And fools like him will help them." The words burned her ears, but she kept walking. She had no strength to fight back. At home that evening, the children asked for more food. The fruit was not enough. Hunger returned like an old shadow creeping into their bones. The mother felt tears rise. She whispered prayers, hoping tomorrow would bring something better. That same night in the market, the cashier stayed late. He cleaned the counters long after others had gone. Alone with his thoughts, he whispered to himself, "They think kindness is weakness, but they are wrong." He thought of the children's thin faces. He thought of the mother's silver eyes, filled with pain. He knew he could not stop now, even if the world hated him for it. But outside the store, eyes were watching. A group of angry men had seen enough. "If he keeps helping her, others will follow," one hissed. "We must make an example." Their shadows moved in the night, dark with hate. The next morning, the alien mother woke to find strange marks scratched on the door of her shelter. Ugly human words carved deep into the metal. Her children asked what it meant. She lied softly. "It is nothing, do not worry." But her heart knew the truth. Someone wanted to scare her, someone wanted her gone. Later that day, when she returned to the market, the whispers grew louder. A woman spat near her feet. A man shoved her child. Aside, she felt her knees shake. She almost turned to leave. But then she saw him, the human cashier. Standing tall at his counter, his eyes found hers, steady and calm. She remembered his whisper from before. "Because I know hunger." His words gave her strength. She straightened her back. She held her children's hands tight, and she walked. Past the cruel stares, the cashier noticed the fear in her face. He noticed the fresh scratches on her robe. He understood without words. He served her quickly, slipping an extra piece of bread into her bag without charge. She gasped softly, but he only whispered, "Do not argue. They cannot stop me from being human." Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to thank him, but again the words stuck. The crowd watched. Some hissed in anger, some shook their heads, yet a few stood silent, thinking. For the first time, a seed of doubt touched their hearts. That night, the mother and her children ate again, their hunger quieted, but fear still walked. In the shadows of their home, she whispered to her children as they fell asleep. Remember his face. Remember his kindness. Even if the world turns dark, there is still light. And far away in his room above the market, the cashier stared at the stars through a small window. His voice was soft, almost a prayer. If kindness costs me everything, then let it be so. He did not know the storm was growing. He did not know his simple acts were changing more than one family. For in the shadows of hunger, a story of courage and compassion was beginning to rise. The market was busier than usual. The next day the air was thick with voices, laughter, and the smell of roasted food. But under the noise there was tension. People pointed toward the human cashier, whispers passing from one mouth to another. The story of his kindness had spread far, and not everyone liked it. By afternoon, his manager appeared, a tall man with sharp eyes and a face that never smiled. He walked straight to the counter where the cashier stood, his voice cut through the noise like a knife. "Inside now," he ordered. The cashier obeyed. Leaving the line of waiting customers behind, the office was small, filled with stacks of reports and glowing screens. The manager closed the door. His eyes narrowed. "Do you think you are a hero?" he asked coldly. The cashier stayed silent. The manager slammed his hand on the table. "You broke the rules. You paid for an alien's food. Do you understand what that means?" The cashier lifted his head. His voice was calm but heavy. "It means 2 children did not go hungry." The manager's face darkened. "It means you put this store at risk. It means humans will start questioning our order. We cannot afford softness, especially not for them." The cashier's fist tightened at his sides. Memories of his own hunger flashed in his mind. He remembered nights when his mother cried quietly, hiding her empty hands. He remembered the shame of begging. He whispered, "Kindness is not weakness." The manager leaned closer, his eyes burning. "If you do this again, you will lose your job. Is that what you want? To throw away your future for a beggar alien?" The words stung, but the cashier did not lower his gaze. His silence was his answer. That evening he returned to his counter. Customers stared, some smirked, some whispered cruel words as they passed, but he kept working, his hands steady, his heart even steadier. The alien mother came late, moving quickly with her children. She carried only a few coins. When she reached the counter, she noticed the stiffness in his posture. She noticed the shadow in his eyes. She whispered, "They punished you, didn't they?" He gave a small shake of his head. "Not yet," he replied. "But they will." Her heart sank. She looked down at her children, who were staring at the bread on the counter. She wanted to leave without buying, to protect him, but before she could speak, he quietly slipped the bread into her bag again. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Don't worry about me, worry about them." Tears filled her silver eyes. She wanted to argue, but the crowd around them was watching. She could feel the stares pressing into her back, some filled with hate, some with curiosity. The whispers were louder now. "He does it again," someone muttered. "This will end badly." Another hissed. The mother left quickly, pulling her children close, her heart heavy with fear and gratitude. She knew he was risking everything. She knew every coin he spent for them pushed him closer to ruin. Yet she also knew she could never repay him. Not yet. Later that night, the cashier was called again. This time it was not just his manager. A group of humans stood in the office, traders and customers with angry faces. They spoke over each other, voices sharp and bitter. "He makes us look weak," one man shouted. "He chooses them over us." Another added, "If we let this go, more will follow." The manager raised his hand for silence. His eyes locked on the cashier. "This is your last warning," he said. "If you defy us again, you will not only lose your job, you will lose your place in this colony." The words echoed in the small room. The cashier felt the weight of them, but when he closed his eyes, he saw the children's thin faces. He heard the boy's soft whisper, "Mama, I am hungry." That memory was stronger than any threat. He opened his eyes and spoke with quiet strength. "Then so be it." The room fell silent. Shock and anger burned on their faces. But the cashier did not take back his words. He turned and walked out, leaving them in silence. In her shelter, the alien mother prayed. She held her children close as they slept. She whispered, "That man, he will suffer because of us." Her voice broke. But then her daughter stirred in her sleep and smiled, whispering the word, "bread." The mother's tears fell. She realized the cashier's sacrifice was not just for her, it was for every small smile her children could still give. Far above the market in his lonely room, the cashier stared at the ceiling. His chest felt heavy, but not with regret. He whispered to the night, "If kindness is a crime, then I will pay the price." He knew the cost was coming. He knew the world would turn against him, but his heart was firm, stronger than before, for he had tasted the price of compassion, and he was ready to pay it all. The days grew heavier in the colony. Rumors spread like fire. The human cashier had helped the alien mother not once, but twice. Every corner of the market buzzed with the story. Some laughed at him. Some cursed his name. A few whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was brave. But in most eyes he was foolish. The alien mother felt the weight of every stare. When she walked through the market, whispers followed like shadows. She held her children close, her head low, yet no matter how heavy the shame, she could not forget the bread in their hands, the kindness that gave them life for another day. Her heart was torn. She wanted to stop going back, to protect him from more trouble. But hunger was merciless. It gnawed at her children's bones. It left their lips dry. It forced her to return again and again. Each time she swore it would be the last. Each time he met her with the same calm eyes. One evening after the market closed, she stood outside his stall, her children asleep at home. She waited until the lamps dimmed and the streets emptied. Then she stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I must speak." The cashier looked at her in surprise. He was cleaning the counter. His hands stopped. His eyes softened. "You should not be here this late," he whispered. She shook her head. "I had to come." She stepped closer, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the low light. "You risk everything for us. Why, you do not even know my name." He smiled faintly. "Names do not change hunger." She looked down, her hands trembling. "Still, I must repay you. I promise you this. One day I will give back more than you gave me." The cashier shook his head. "You owe me nothing. Your children's smiles are enough." But her heart would not rest. She had lived her whole life being treated as worthless. To accept kindness without returning it felt like carrying a heavy chain. Her voice grew stronger. "No, I promise. If I must work all my life, if I must fight the whole world, I will repay you." Her words were like fire. In the cool night, the human cashier studied her face. He saw no weakness there, only fierce determination. He gave a slow nod. "Then let it be your promise." What neither of them knew was that eyes were watching again. From the shadows of the alley, a group of angry men whispered, "See, she comes to him in secret." One growled, "This is more than food. He betrays us all." Their hatred grew deeper, their plans darker. The next day, the cashier's manager pulled him aside again, his face red with anger. "You were seen with her last night," he hissed. "Do you have no shame? Do you want the colony to believe you care for her kind?" The cashier met his glare without fear. "Let them believe what they will." The manager's voice rose. "You are playing with fire, you think? Compassion will save you. It will not. It will destroy you." But the cashier only whispered back, "Then let it destroy me. Better than to live with a heart made of stone." In her shelter, the alien mother repeated her promise to herself. She whispered it as she mended torn cloth. She whispered it as she watched her children sleep. "One day I will repay him." Her words carried weight. They gave her strength she had not felt. In years, for the first time, she believed she was not powerless. The children noticed too. They saw their mother stand straighter. They saw her eyes burn brighter. When they asked why, she told them, "Because someone believed we deserved to live, and I must honor that belief." But danger was closer than she realized. That same night, stones were thrown at her shelter. Harsh voices shouted from the dark, "Go back to the dirt, you do not belong here." Her children woke in terror. She hugged them tight, her voice calm though her heart raced. "Do not fear. I will protect you." In the distance, the cashier heard the commotion. He looked out his window but saw only shadows fading into the night. His chest tightened. He knew they would not stop. He whispered, "They will hurt her because of me." His fists clenched. He swore he would not let that happen. The promise of the alien mother and the silent vow of the human cashier were now bound together. Two threads crossing in a world that wanted them. Apart, neither of them knew where it would lead, but both carried their promises like shields. And in the dark corners of the colony, hatred sharpened its knives, waiting for the moment to strike. The morning sun rose pale and weak over the colony. The market was alive again with voices, the smell of roasted roots, and the sound of coins clinking on counters. Yet beneath the noise there was a sharp tension. Everyone felt it. Everyone waited for something to break. The human cashier stood at his counter. His hands moved steady, but inside his chest, a storm raged. He knew eyes were on him. He knew whispers followed every move. He had accepted the price of compassion, but he also knew the cost was still climbing. The alien mother arrived later that day. Her children walked close, their small hands clutching her robe. She tried to move quickly to pass through unnoticed, but the crowd parted, not in kindness but in hostility. Whispers grew louder, words like poison. There she is, the beggar, the human's pet. She kept her eyes low. Her heart beat hard. She only wanted bread, just enough for the children. When she reached the counter, the cashier met her gaze. His calm eyes gave her strength. He served her without a word, slipping an extra piece into her bag. But the silence broke when a voice shouted, "Enough!" A man stepped forward from the crowd, his face red, his voice loud. "This has gone too far," he growled. "He pays for her food, he defends her, and now he dares to feed her again. Are we blind?" Others joined in, voices sharp. "He betrays us. He is no better than them. Throw them out." The mother froze. Fear gripped her chest. Her children clung to her legs. The crowd closed in. A ring of angry faces surrounded the counter. The cashier's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. His voice rang out steady and clear. "Enough," he said. "These are children, not enemies." But his words only fueled their anger. A woman spat at the alien mother's feet. "Children grow into thieves," she hissed. Another man shouted, "If you care so much, leave with them." Laughter followed, harsh and cruel. The alien mother's knees shook. Her children began to cry. She wanted to run, but she knew running would only feed their hate. Before she could speak, the cashier stepped from behind the counter. He stood between her and the crowd, his voice stronger. "If you wish to strike, then strike me, but you will not touch them." The crowd gasped. Some hesitated, but anger does not die easily. A man shoved forward, his hand raised. The mother cried out, but before the blow could fall, another voice cut through the market. "Stop." It was an old woman, bent with age, a human who sold herbs near the stalls. Her eyes were sharp, her voice strong despite her years. "I saw it with my own eyes," she said. "This mother tried to return the food. She did not beg, she did not steal. He gave from his own pocket. Do you call that betrayal?" The crowd wavered. Some looked uneasy. The old woman's words pierced their anger. The cashier stood taller. "Compassion is not a crime," he said. "It is the only thing that makes us human." The alien mother trembled. Her voice was soft but clear. He saved my children. If you call that weakness, then you have forgotten what strength is. Her words were brave, though her heart pounded like thunder. The silence that followed was heavy. Some in the crowd lowered their eyes, unsure now, but others hissed, unwilling to let go of hate. "We will not forget this," one man growled before turning away. Slowly the crowd began to scatter, but their whispers promised more trouble. The cashier turned to the mother. His hand touched her shoulder gently. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. Her children still clung to her, their eyes wide with fear. "No," she whispered. "But they will come again." He nodded, his face firm. "Then let them come, I will not stop." His voice carried no doubt, only quiet strength. The mother looked at him, her silver eyes shining with unshed tears. She whispered again her promise. "One day, I will repay you." That night, the market was quiet, but the colony was not. The whispers spread further. Some spoke of rebellion, some of betrayal, some of hope. The cashier sat alone in his small room, staring at the stars. He knew the storm was far from over, but he also knew he would face it. In her shelter, the alien mother held her children close. She whispered her promise again and again. Her heart was heavy with fear, but stronger than ever with resolve. For now she was not only a mother fighting hunger, she was a mother carrying a vow. And in the dark streets, the men who had shouted the loudest gathered again. Their eyes burned with hate, their voices sharp. "Tomorrow we end this," one said. Their footsteps faded into the night, but their threat lingered like poison in the air. The trouble in the market had only begun. The colony woke heavy with tension. The market opened as always, but the air felt sharp. Every whisper carried anger. Every stare carried judgment. The story of the human cashier and the alien mother had spread to every corner. Some spoke of betrayal, others of courage. Everyone waited for what would happen next. The alien mother walked slowly with her children. Her heart beat hard. She knew danger was close. She had seen shadows near her shelter the night before. Stones had been thrown again, cruel words painted on the walls, yet hunger forced her to return. She could not let her children starve. The cashier stood at his counter, his face calm though his chest felt like fire. He had not slept. He had heard threats outside his window, but still he came, still he stood. He would not run. He would not bend. By midday, the trouble came. A group of men pushed through the market. Their voices were loud, their eyes filled with hate. "There he is," one shouted, "the traitor." Another pointed at the alien mother. "And there she is, the beggar he protects." The crowd began to gather. Some watched with fear, others with cruel excitement. The mother froze, pulling her children close. The little boy clung to her robe, whispering, "Mama, I am scared." She bent low, whispering back, "Stay behind me, no matter what." Her own knees shook, but her eyes were fierce. The men shoved closer, one slammed his hand on the counter. "You shame us all," he barked at the cashier. "You choose them over your own kind, you should be cast out." The cashier met his eyes without flinching. His voice was steady. "I choose to be human." The market fell silent at his words. For a moment, even the angry men were stunned. But anger returned quickly. One raised his fist, ready to strike. The crowd gasped. The alien mother cried out. But before the blow could fall, the old woman with the herb stall stepped forward again. Her voice shook, but carried strength. "Enough," she said. "I will not watch children starve. I will not watch kindness punished." Others in the crowd hesitated. One younger man stepped forward, his voice nervous. "He is right," he said. "Compassion is not weakness." A murmur rose. Some still hissed with hate, but others nodded slowly. The angry men snarled, "You fools! You think this kindness will save you? It will destroy you all." They shoved past, but now their power was weaker. The crowd did not fully stand with them anymore. The cashier turned back to the mother, his voice gentle. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though her hands still trembled. Her children clung to her tightly. The little girl whispered, "Mama, people helped us." Her words were small, but they carried hope. That night, the whispers in the colony changed. For every cruel word, there was now another that spoke of courage. Some began to question the cruelty they had accepted for so long. Some remembered nights of their own hunger, their own pain. They began to wonder if the cashier was right, if kindness could be stronger than hate. In her shelter, the alien mother held her children close. She whispered softly, "Do you see? Not all humans hate us. Some can still see us." Her son whispered back, "Because of him we eat, because of him we live." She pressed her forehead to theirs. "And because of him we have hope." The cashier, sitting alone in his room, looked out the window at the stars. He thought of the threats, the anger, the faces twisted with hate. But he also thought of the old woman's brave voice, the young man's hesitant support, and the children's small smiles. He whispered, "It was worth it." The days that followed were not easy. Trouble still stirred. Hate did not vanish overnight, but change had begun. People talked, people argued. Some defended him openly. Others secretly helped the alien mother. A seed of compassion had been planted in the soil of cruelty. The alien mother never forgot her promise. Each time she saw the cashier, her eyes carried the weight of her vow. "One day I will repay you," she whispered again. He always shook his head, smiling faintly. "You already have, with their smiles." But deep in her heart, she carried the promise like a blade, ready for the day she could use it. And so, from one simple act of kindness, from one loaf of bread, a chain of events began to change the market, the colony, and perhaps even more. From hunger rose hope. From shame rose courage. And from compassion rose a bond between human and alien that no amount of hate could erase. The story did not end in the market. It was only the beginning. For every child fed, every whisper of kindness was a spark. And sparks, when enough gather, can light a fire that changes everything.